and welcome to Autocar Dialogues presented by Reliance General Insurance. We're here today with a panel of dealers to discuss the world of changing mobility. Everything is changing. It's been a year of churn for the automobile industry. We've seen new safety regulations. We're seeing the move towards BS6. We're seeing mobility itself changing in the way it is. And we're going to discuss that today and how it affects dealers, how it affects consumers. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. We have with us today Mr. Tarun Vasan, who's the director of Vasan Group. We have Mr. Achal Gandhi, who's the director for AK Gandhi Group. And we have with us Mr. Anand Wadhwa, who is the dealer principal for Frontier Automobiles. Welcome. And it is a discussion I'm sure you're all raring to go on. A lot of things have changed for you all in this year as well. It's been a tough year for the dealers. Very hard work to get people to come into the showrooms and sell cars. Do you think it's because mobility is changing and the changing regulations have thrown this your way? Or do you think there are other reasons for it?
See, I think the customer is completely confused, There are too many people trying to make too many changes too fast. The government is trying to bring in BS6 very quickly. Supreme Court is trying to handle the pollution issue. Banks are trying to change business. The rate of interest is not being passed on to the customer. So the customer is completely confused, And yes, it has been a tough year. And only brands which have new models launch. Otherwise, everyone else is in a very tough spot, I would say.
Yeah, has it been difficult for the two-wheeler segment as well?
Actually, what Anand said is very true, that customers are confused. But there is also one thing. The time when we have seen the change of BS3 to BS4, it was only 2.5 days, right? When the order came and all. And there were lots of discounts offered to the consumers actually, from the manufacturer, from the dealer, to liquidate the stock. At the same time here, now the customer is confused for BS6 to BS4 and is thinking that on BS4 vehicles, he might get good deal or better, more discounts actually. So that time there is slightly confusion more with the customers and all. Though we are in two-wheelers, we are telling the customer there is a difference of 9 to 12,000 rupees in every segment of the vehicles. But still they think it's all marketing stuff. They might get something actually to it, and that is a big thing.
I think you're waiting to say something on this subject to us.
I would second Anandji on this by stating that there's a lot of confusion created in the minds of the customer. The customer is waiting for discounts, whereas every December there are special schemes being rolled out. Unfortunately, not for the year. The customers are confused to understand the difference between the Bharat 4 and the Bharat 6. The NBFC is tightening the creditability norms is also one of the reasons to understand that there is a lot of rejection on the finance side which has happened. I think we need to be more clear when the customer walks into us to give him or her more clarity on what is Bharat 4, what is Bharat 6, and the credibility of Bharat 4 will still be on till Bharat 6 comes in and thereon also.
But do you think, your message to the consumer today, every consumer wants to know, is this a great time for me to buy a car or am I making a mistake? So you guys have the stocks, that, okay, BS4 is going to run on BS6. Is this message being spread enough to the consumers? And is it really a great time for the consumer to buy a car, or do you think they should hang on?
As I mentioned, the consumer is confused. Consumer needs to be educated well that the Bharat Stage 4 and Bharat Stage 6 is a change of the emission norms, not of the product fully. All the products of Bharat Stage 4 will run successfully throughout the life tenure of the product, which unfortunately is not still very clear in the minds of the consumer.
So as dealers, this is my question to you. We're talking about, okay, product and the changing environment scenario, but as dealers for you, this must be something that you have to really work hard on because you have to educate the guys on the sales floor. Everything is changing. The way they explain cars, the way they sell cars is changing completely for you.
See, I think the way industry has handled this, I would say that is not really the way it should have been handled in the true sense of the way. There are a lot of unanswered questions still. When are new models going to be coming? What is the price? Will there be offers on those new cars? A lot of these questions are still not answered. So honestly, on a day-to-day basis, we are getting more and more information. So whatever information we are getting, we are passing on to the customers. But it has been a tough job, And also there is a whole set of customers who have different set of questions altogether with respect to the future, whether we should buy a car. That itself is a very big question today. It has been tough, and communicating this to the customer continuously has been a big challenge.
Well, That is, go ahead, you wanted to say something.
What everyone said, I like to add on that. Like when government has clearly mentioned it by 31st March 2020, vehicle can be registered clearly, right? So when government has clearly said the 15 years of registration tax is been paid by the customer, he should not worry about buying the product what is want to buy. As said, the norms of emissions is only change, whereas the product will be same more or less. Some more the time is changing, digitalization, so more new features might come up. That might come up in BS6 also. So consumers, if they are thinking they should buy the vehicle right now, there is no issue to buy them of BS4.
So basically, you're saying come into our showrooms and buy them right now. But do you think, you said something really correctly. I think it's not just the changing scenario, it's the want itself that's changing. Do we need to buy a car? That whole model is changing. Shared mobility, leasing, we're following more of the West systems where you can own a car, change it every 3 years. So has that changed in your scenario? Are you now working on these newer models to actually just change the way you bring cars to consumers? I can't even say sell them anymore. So is that really changing in each one of your showrooms?
So I think, see, if you look at it across all brands, I might say that the walk-ins have come down actually, So customers are going online. The very way in which they are researching about the car has changed completely, number one. Number two, there are different modes of buying now. Earlier it was very straitjacketed, buy a car, finance a car, Today it is leasing a car, today it's a shared model, today there is Ola and Uber, which is again different kind of shared mobility. So, and also then the corporates are also changing their way. So I would say, there is a lot of change in terms of how customer is looking at buying buying a car as a decision making. Also, I think that whole set, buying a car used to be a prestige issue. It's going to be an achievement. Actually, it's no longer considered that way. It's no longer a status symbol, I would say, to a certain extent, of buying a car. So otherwise, we used to say, buy a car, buy a house. These are the first two big steps when you, let's say, are on your own. So I think that's no longer true.
Yeah, Mr. Vasan, do you agree with this in principle, or do you think there are other reasons as to why this new generation is not going in for a buy?
See, there are multiple reasons that a consumer would look at before buying a vehicle now. Earlier, it used to be a status symbol. Now, it is a status symbol, one, very importantly, for many. But the importance has been changed from status symbol for many, as I said, to a point to point. So, as you rightly said, the entire concept of transportation is now changing, because the people say, what is my use? So now it's become more use based. If I can pull in, why should I own? If I need to own, do I need to own one or two? Do I need to own two? So what is the direct and indirect cost implementation? So there's a lot that a consumer needs to look at and discuss before going ahead.
So that's what I'm coming to. I mean, do you think it is this indirect cost that's really adding to the fear of consumers coming in? Because we've seen parking fines going up across cities. We've seen our infrastructure really getting difficult because of all the construction and metro happening. So if you buy a car, where do you keep the car? I mean, today every building or apartment block in Mumbai is, it's finding it difficult to accommodate the parking space, so you're paying crazy amounts for that parking space. And the younger generation, I think, is just turning away from this indirect expense that's added on to cars. But do you agree with that? And does that happen in the two-wheeler as well? Because I can understand for cars, but two-wheelers...
For four-wheelers also, we have seen there's a difference between the urban and the rural. In rural, definitely the first car he will be buying. But the second car, definitely there is a thought process. If there is a use, then definitely we should buy it. Else, there are many other options which are available. In two-wheeler, not exactly this has happened, because the work of in India where we have to go anything, it is by a two-wheeler itself. In two-wheeler, that kind of shift is not there presently. If there is a need, first it used to be only happen a vehicle. Now there is a two-wheeler for every person, like a mobile for every person, two-wheeler for every person in the family.
So we're talking about mobiles. The current generation is, the new model comes, like iPhone has created this trend where every year you have to change your phone. Do you find that happening with cars as well? And shouldn't that be then increasing sales? So why are we seeing this dip when we've got this millennial generation that likes to change and churn stuff? Is it just that we need to change the way our sales model is currently for this to actually revive and come back again?
See, I think we are in the early days, as far as this is concerned. So a lot of companies are now offering cars on lease, for a single user or for a personal user. But it's early days, and a lot of people are still exploring. Also, the way cars are maintained in India, looking at the infrastructure, looking at their durability. See, unlike West, where even after 3 years or 5 years, you can actually, have a car in a perfectly good condition. But it's not true in India. So I think it's early days, but maybe it will change.
Is this a really worrisome time for dealers in that sense? Because today you sell a car, you get a percentage of it, you're servicing that car, everything works, it's a system. That ecosystem is now changing, right? That entire scenario is changing. So is there dialogue with manufacturers okay, where are we going to fit into this new ecosystem, and has that whole ecosystem actually changed for us? And what is the dealer's position going to be? Because if you're going to become a leasing agent, or the whole scenario changes for you. So is that a worrisome?
See, I think the need for cars will always stay. The modes might change. We are in discussions, but the problem is we still don't have clarity. There are a lot of variables which we don't have answers to. For example, electric cars. When would we have electric cars? What would be the extent of electric cars and stuff like that? That is a very big, let's say, question mark in all of our minds. And I think even the manufacturers today don't know the real answer. At least I don't. So and neither does the consumer. So that way, also, if the model is going to change, for example, I would say 15 years back, the sales per outlet was actually higher than what it is today. So what actually manufacturers have done is we have now a lot of distribution, right? A lot of dealerships, but the sales per outlet is actually lesser than what it used to be, whereas the costs are like 5 times, and the margins are still the same. So yes, the model has to change. I think manufacturers are realizing this. So a lot of manufacturers are going into the version where they are saying, okay, no more dealers. First, let's have more profitable dealers. So there is a constant cry for dealership viability across all brands. So I think a lot still needs to change. So let's see how it goes.
Do you think MG coming in and changing the way this whole margin would have a domino effect in this? Because people have seen the sales, right? Do you think Kia, because you're selling Kia, and MG are just new products, or do you think that there is another reason behind that as to why they're actually in this current market, which is quite flat, selling so well?
See, India is a developing economy, and we have the youngest population in the world, right, as a percentage. So people are willing to experiment. So these are new brands, but these brands bring a lot of value, So these brands have not taken the market for granted. So they have done a lot of research. They have the right products at the right price. So I would say, yes, will there be a domino effect? It's still, we cannot say right now, because a lot of people are dependent on service revenue, But if, let's say, this continues, then yes, probably all of us will have to shift the way dealer body has been operating and the margin structure as well.
Do you not think that really is actually the better way? Because to a consumer, when the dealer is dependent on service revenue, it's never a great thought for the consumer, right? So do you think that actually shifting this might actually be more beneficial? It will put more product out there and more confidence in the consumer's mind as well. Do you think that's a valid change that really needs to happen?
I would say that the mobility concept is changing, as you rightly mentioned a while ago, but it is still taking time to change, because you have multiple generation layers who are still procuring vehicles. So as I said earlier, it changes as per the thought of the generation. The manufacturers have started trying on new products, that what would the mobility look like in future. So they have started trying their hands on multiple things. If you have started the subscription model, if you have started the leasing model, and so on and so forth, because they are also seeing the trend changing. The only good part in the entire scenario is because they belong to the global part, they have seen the global trend changing, and they have the experience and the capability to replicate those models in India. So I think we are just waiting to understand how would these models change and what kind of role would a dealer play in the new model.
Do you think, as a dealer, it is viable, that there is an infrastructure for it, or do you think that it is a very long haul from here? Because like you said, the customer is very confused. We have a few EVs coming in. Hyundai has brought in their Kona. It's done well. So people are seeing, oh, it's selling, but how do I buy one and how do I use one? So, there is a big gap in infrastructure. There's no doubt about it. And I think the country needs to put their foot forward for it to work. But what's your opinion?
So just to quickly answer that question, if the margin structure goes back to sales a little bit, I think it will be better for all of us, including the consumer, because then the consumer will have more peace of mind when it comes to service. When it comes to electric cars, I think the consumer will come to us only for, let's say, a body paint job, or for the interval might be 2 years or 1 year. So I think as far as the electric cars are concerned, people will adopt to it, but the infrastructure definitely is not in place today. So yes, it's a long haul, and I would say setting up the charging infrastructure, having the right price, having the right mileage for the batteries, I think it's a long haul.
Yeah, because our country throws many challenges: pollution, heat. So for batteries, it's a long haul. It's a big development. But in two-wheelers, we're already seeing that shift. People are taking to electric mobility in two-wheelers a lot easier. Why do you think that is?
Yes, because as India is very price sensitive. So when it comes to, even for the two-wheelers, how much fuel they have to pay for their work and everything, and when the electric says only you have to pay very less, people are ready to buy up. Unfortunately, presently there are not many manufacturers who are giving it, but they are ready with it. Whenever the infrastructure gets ready, they will start giving it.
But there's also been a worry because people have gone out and bought these two-wheelers that are direct imports from China, and then suddenly the company has folded up and gone. So you're left with this product and there's no dealer, there's no service, there's no nothing. So is that a worry, and do you think regulation is now needed from government in how this functions and how it is brought to the end consumer for you to actually be able, because today it's not only the problem for the consumer, it's also the problem for the dealer because it's removing customer confidence, right?
Correct. Even there are not many finance company presently who finance these dealers for their customers actually, because they also don't have faith which company is going to survive, which is not. So already companies which are surviving and which are good in this business, they will definitely do good business whenever the infrastructure and the date comes to give 100% EV on that part.
You think the way forward is the way the bike industry is taking it? I mean, battery swapping. Yes. Do you think that is the way everybody needs to work and develop for it to become viable in our country? Because as I see it, I don't see infrastructure being able to cope with the demand that we have today. Take, for example, a city like Mumbai. How would an apartment block of 30 stories high have and 3 cars per home be able to charge? And the rate of electricity in our city as well is quite high. So I see that as a hindrance. Do you think battery swapping might alleviate that and actually help bring in more EVs into?
I would just say one thing in this. Battery swapping is a fantastic concept. But there are multiple challenges that you actually need to look into it. One is the capital cost of the batteries. The lithium-ion batteries are way expensive than to the lead-acid batteries which are currently being used. Second, how do you track those batteries? And there are multiple more direct and indirect challenges that a consumer as well as the company which ventures into this would have to face and would have to look out for the solutions. It doesn't seem that easy as it actually looks like on the face of it.
So actually some of the people are doing it already, So in fact I know of a company which is doing exactly same, giving battery. So for a subscription model, come take the battery, give us the old battery, take the charge battery. But that's good for two-wheelers and maybe for the e-rickshaws. It's not going to work for cars because the batteries in the cars, the way they are fitted as of now at least, it takes a lot of effort to take them out and take them back into the car. Fit them back into the car, and also the sheer capex on those batteries, So it's going to be very difficult for four-wheelers, but it's definitely workable for e-rickshaws and two-wheelers.
Anandji, but if you see this as a concept, the company that you would know, I'm sure, would be very geo-specific, because as you increase the geographical presence, the capability to infuse the capex is going to be in millions of dollars, is what is going to be one of the biggest challenges. Second, how do you track the batteries that you have replaced? Third, very importantly, you have a bike, you give me the battery which is 2 years old, and you take a new battery along and you suddenly disappear. What happens to the cost? Does the company amortize the cost? Does the company bear losses? That is the reason why I said there are multiple direct and indirect challenges which are linked to a project like this. When it comes to electric as a whole, my idea of the entire thing is that the state and the central government have to come on one platform, which till now they are not. If I look at states are running their own schemes, center has a different scheme, because the consumer is confused of which scheme do I avail.
Yeah, we've seen it with the Motor Vehicles Act being implemented. So states are taking their own direction, whereas the center is saying, in a particular manner. So we need cohesive thought. That is definitely the need of the hour. I think not only for EV, but in general for the automotive industry, because we have one wing saying one thing, then we have saying yes EV, no EV, back and forth. So I think we definitely need cohesive thought. I think we need a great panel that involves dealers, that involves manufacturers, that involves people maybe from media, that actually sits there and advises the government. I think that really is the need of the hour, and we hope they're listening to us at this point of time. But let me wrap it up at this point by asking you, what's your outlook for 2020?
2020 should be better than 19, I would say, because 19 was probably one of the not so good years which we have seen. There are some new brand launches which have already taken place. So I think overall 20 will be better than 19.
Yeah. So you're hopeful for it.
Yeah.
Two-wheeler market?
Yes, definitely. I look after 6 to 9 months, it will be better sunshine actually. And after this change of BS6, definitely the market is going to be back.
You're in the commercial sector as well. So how do you see, the whole passengers, commercial going for 2020?
I feel it is important to sustain 2020, and it is going to be the year of change in sales and the year of service that we need to really focus upon. So that is how I look at 2020 as a year. If we sustain and all go through well together, except like Anandji rightly mentioned, new launches which will automatically take the cream on the pie. Except that, the rest where there are no new launches, we need to be a service centric product and need to ensure that the last year numbers are at least intact and create the buzz that we are around and the consumer can come to us if he has any kind of confusion regarding Bharat 6 or might be new products like leasing, the subsidy model or anything else.
Well, as consumers, we are always suspect of dealers, but you've seen they have a really hard time as well dealing with us consumers. It's a difficult time for them, and you've heard their voice. They've turned around and told you it's a good time to buy cars. So get out there and go buy cars. Thank you for watching Autocar Dialogues.